I was still wearing my black funeral suit when I came back to the house. The sky was gray. Rain had just stopped, and everything was damp. My cousin stood at the door with a box in her hand. Without a word, she dropped it on the wet driveway. My clothes spilled out like garbage. I didn't say anything. I just stared. Behind her, my aunt and brother stood with folded arms. No one looked sad. No one said a word about my mother. Our house, looked strange. The curtains were different. Her photo was gone from the wall. It felt like I had already been erased. The locks have been changed, my aunt said. You don't live here anymore. I stood there, still holding the folded program from the funeral. It still smelled like roses from the church. My hands were cold. My throat felt tight, but I didn't speak. You should go, my brother added. This isn't your home anymore. They were all so calm. Like they had practiced this. Like they were proud of it. I looked down at my things on the wet ground. A sweater. A book. A toothbrush. They had packed like I was a stranger. Like I didn't belong here. My cousin kicked the box closer to me and turned back inside. I bent down, picked up my box, and walked to my car. It was quiet. No one followed. No one called after me. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment and looked back at the house. The windows were dark, but I knew they were watching. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I just drove away. I had no plan yet, but I knew what I had to do. They thought I was weak because I didn't fight back. They thought being quiet meant I gave up. But they were wrong. I had something they didn't know. Something my mother gave me before she passed. She had changed her will. She left everything to me. The house. The land. The savings. She had told me it was to protect me from them. She knew what they were like. She had seen how they treated me. She had always said, don't let them take what's yours. I kept her will safe. I didn't tell anyone. Not even when they shoved me out. Not even when they laughed as I drove off. The lawyer had the original. I called him that day. Told him what happened. He wasn't surprised. He said, it's time. Later, I found a cheap motel and checked in. I placed the box of my things on the small table and sat beside it. I took out my mother's photo. The same one they had taken down. I looked at it for a long time. Her smile felt like home. I whispered, I'm going to make this right. They thought the story ended that day, but it was only the beginning. My mother and I lived a quiet life. We didn't have much, but we had peace. The house was small, just 2 bedrooms and an old garden out back. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Most days were simple, cooking, cleaning, and sitting on the porch when the weather was good. She loved her tea in the evening and always folded the laundry just right. I helped her with everything as she got older. Doctor visits, medicine, even just getting around the house. She didn't ask, but I stayed. I wanted to. I loved her. The rest of the family wasn't around much. They came on holidays or when they needed something. They'd bring smiles, stay for a short visit, then leave with bags of food or money. Sometimes they didn't even call. When my mother got sick, they said they were too busy. My aunt said it was too far to drive. My cousin had school, and my brother just stopped showing up altogether. It was always me by her side. Through the hospital visits, the long nights, the days when she couldn't get out of bed, I was there. She used to say, "You're all I've got." I knew what she meant. It wasn't just words. It was the truth. She told me stories from her childhood. She showed me old letters and pictures. We would laugh sometimes, even when she was in pain. And when it got worse, she started talking about the future. She said, I don't want them to take what's not theirs. I didn't know what she meant at first. Then one day, she gave me a folder. Inside was a copy of her new will. She had signed it in secret, with a lawyer she trusted. Everything, the house, the land, the savings, she left to me. She said it was fair. She said I earned it, not through money, but through time, care, and love. I didn't want anything from her except more time. But she had made her choice. She didn't tell the rest of the family. I didn't either. She made me promise. Don't say a word until the time is right. I kept that promise. I hid the folder where no one would find it. Even after she passed, I didn't speak of it. I needed to wait. The family thought they had a chance. They showed up again when she died. Suddenly they remembered her. They cried loud at the funeral and talked about how much they missed her. But I knew better. I had seen their silence when she needed them most. After the funeral, they started acting like the house belonged to them. My brother asked about the bank accounts. My aunt talked about selling the garden. My cousin joked about what room she wanted. No one asked me anything. No one thanked me for taking care of her. They acted like I was in the way. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I watched. I listened. They thought I was too soft to stop them. They thought I had no power. But I had the will. I had the truth. And I had time. Every day, they grew more bold. They went through drawers. They moved furniture. They whispered behind doors. They thought they could split everything between them. They were already dividing up her life like it was a prize to grab. But they didn't know what she did. They didn't know she had already decided who deserved it, and they didn't know that I hadn't lost. I was just waiting. They thought I had nothing. They were wrong. My brother was always the favorite. He was the golden one. My mother still loved us both, but the rest of the family only saw him. He could do no wrong. When he got in trouble at school, they called it growing pains. When I got good grades, no one noticed. When he borrowed money and didn't pay it back, they laughed it off. When I saved money, they said I was selfish. My aunt praised him every chance she got. He's going places, she always said. She never said that about me. To her, I was just quiet and boring. I stayed home, helped my mother, paid the bills on time. That didn't matter to them. They liked big talk and big promises. He gave them that. I didn't. My cousin followed the same path. Always full of loud opinions, always judging. She joked about how plain I was. You dress like an old man, she said once. I was wearing a clean shirt and jeans. Nothing was ever good enough. They made fun of my job, my car, even the way I talked. I didn't argue. I just let it go. But I remembered. They acted like I was invisible. I was the one who fixed the leaking sink, the one who drove my mother to every doctor's appointment. I cleaned the yard, paid for medicine, sat beside her when she couldn't sleep. They didn't show up. But now they talked like they owned everything. The house, the savings, even the dishes in the kitchen. My aunt walked through the hallway like it was already hers. This wall needs paint, she said, running her fingers along it. My cousin pointed to the bedroom and said, this one's mine. My brother sat on the couch with his shoes up, telling me how things would be split. They didn't ask. They didn't wait. They just took. I watched it all. I said nothing. I knew what they thought of me. They believed I was too quiet to stand up for myself, too soft to fight. To them, silence meant weakness. But it didn't. They forgot how much I had seen, how many times they had smiled in front of others but talked down to me behind closed doors. Every little joke, every sigh, every eye roll when I spoke, I remembered all of it. They thought I had no voice, but I was just patient. My brother thought his charm would carry him through everything. My aunt thought age gave her the right to take. My cousin thought being loud made her important. None of them looked at me as a person. They saw me as a shadow. I let them talk. I let them plan. They thought they were in control. But I knew something they didn't. I had watched them my whole life, and I had learned one thing. People like that don't notice quiet strength. They only understand loud wins. But not this time. This time, they wouldn't even see it coming. I didn't say anything. Not a word. They thought I was scared. They thought I had nothing. I let them believe it. They walked around the house like they already owned it. They made plans, talked about selling things, laughed in the living room. My brother called me soft. My aunt said I was too quiet to handle anything important. My cousin rolled her eyes whenever I spoke. They didn't take me seriously. They told neighbors that I gave up. They told friends that I had no claim. I heard the stories. I saw the looks. Still, I stayed quiet. No shouting. No fighting. Just silence. But inside, I was burning. I remembered everything my mother had said. I remembered the will she gave me. The real one. Signed, stamped, and stored with the lawyer. I knew the truth. So I drove to the lawyer's office. It was calm there. No noise, no lies, just paper and facts. I gave him the documents. He read them carefully and nodded. This is clear, he said. We'll begin the process. I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't joy. It wasn't anger. It was something cold and quiet, like steel. I left the office and went back to where I was staying. My phone buzzed all day. My cousin asking about keys. My brother asking about bills. My aunt asking about paperwork. I answered them all the same way. I don't know. I'll check. They didn't realize I had already checked everything. The process had started. The court was now involved. They were still walking around the house like it belonged to them, taking photos, moving things, planning their future. They thought I was still too soft to act. They didn't know I had already acted. Every time they asked me something, I gave short answers. I'm not sure. I think Mom handled that. Maybe the lawyer knows. It gave me time. Time for the court to do what needed to be done. Time for the lawyer to file the right papers. The days passed. I said nothing. They grew louder. They laughed more. They said things like, some people just aren't strong enough to deal with this stuff. I heard them. I didn't answer. They thought silence meant weakness. But silence can hold power. It can carry truth. It can build walls they can't see. I watched them from a distance. I saw how sure they were, how easy it was for them to erase me. But I wasn't gone. I was just waiting. They had no idea what was coming. A few weeks passed. The house looked different. They had painted the walls with bright colors. The furniture was changed. Old things were thrown out. It didn't look like my mother's home anymore. It looked like a cheap rental, like something made for strangers, not for family. One afternoon, they had a party. Cars filled the driveway. Music played loud from the windows. People I didn't know laughed in the yard. I stayed far away, watching from the street. No one saw me. My cousin wore new clothes and smiled like she owned the place. My aunt showed people around like it was her house. My brother stood on the porch, drink in hand, proud and loud. I stood there for a few minutes, then turned and left. I didn't feel angry. I felt nothing. The next morning, the phone rang. A calm voice spoke. "This is the sheriff's office. Are you the legal heir to the Johnson property?" I said yes. "We've reviewed the will. You are listed as the sole owner. The eviction notices will be served today." I said thank you and hung up. Later that day, they called me. First it was my cousin. "Did you do something?" she asked, voice sharp. I said, "I don't know. Maybe ask the sheriff." Then my brother called. He was louder. "You can't do this," he said. I didn't answer. Then my aunt tried. "We didn't know. We thought the house was still being figured out," she said. I didn't respond. By evening, the news had hit them. Papers were delivered. Legal ones, with stamps and signatures. They were told to leave. Not in a month. Not in a week. They had a few days. The house was no longer theirs to walk through. No longer theirs to plan around. No longer theirs to laugh in. It was mine. Legally. Quietly. Fully. They didn't understand how it happened. They didn't know I had been working behind the scenes. While they were partying, I was filing. While they were laughing, I was making sure every paper was in place. They had taken down my mother's photo. They had moved her old chair. They had thrown out her teacups. But now they had to pack up everything again, this time for real. The house waited. I didn't rush. I didn't show up. I let the law speak for me. They came to my door 2 days later. It was early in the morning. I heard knocking, then more knocking. I didn't move right away. I already knew who it was. When I finally opened the door, they were all standing there, my aunt, my cousin, and my brother. My aunt's eyes were red. Her voice was shaky. "Please," she said. "We didn't know. We didn't mean for it to go like this." She looked tired, scared. She held her hands together like she was praying. "Just give us a little time. A few more days. That's all we're asking." My cousin looked down. She didn't smile like before. She didn't look proud anymore. "It was all a misunderstanding," she said, her voice soft. "We thought everything was being shared. We didn't mean to hurt you." My brother stood at the back. His face was hard. He didn't speak. He just stared, like he couldn't believe he was the one outside now. I looked at all of them. I remembered the day they threw my things in the driveway. I remembered how they laughed, how they told me to leave, how they didn't even give me time to breathe after the funeral. Now they were the ones standing in the cold. My aunt stepped closer. "We're family," she said. "That has to mean something." Her voice broke near the end. She was shaking. I listened. I didn't speak. I didn't move. My cousin wiped her eyes. "We can't just be out in the street. Please. It was never meant to be like this." I looked at them for a few more seconds. Then I spoke. "Get out." That's all I said. Nothing more. They froze. No one spoke. The air felt heavy. I didn't yell. I didn't push. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. The lock clicked soft and quiet. I walked back to the kitchen. I sat at the table and took a deep breath. The house was calm again. The walls were quiet. No voices. No noise. They had said everything they could. I had only said 2 words. But that was enough. They hadn't cared when I was the one left with nowhere to go. They hadn't cared when they took everything from me. Now they wanted kindness. Now they wanted time. But I had already given them more than they ever gave me. That morning, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel happy either. I just felt done. For once, they heard me, even if I said almost nothing. Sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. People started to find out. It didn't happen fast. It started with a few whispers. Then it spread. Someone asked why my aunt was no longer living in the house. Someone else asked why my cousin looked so upset all the time. People who knew the family started talking. The story began to unfold, little by little. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't argue or explain. I didn't tell lies. I just let the truth come out. I had saved everything. Messages, voice recordings, even the photos from the day they threw my things on the ground. I had kept screenshots of the texts they sent me, calling me useless, telling me to leave. I had videos from the cameras outside the house. You could see them laughing as I walked away with my box. I didn't post anything with anger. I didn't say a single bad word. I just shared what really happened. One photo at a time. One short video. A few quiet messages. I didn't say anything to guide people. I just let them see. It didn't take long. Friends who once supported my aunt stopped talking to her. Some of them sent me private messages, shocked by what they saw. Old co-workers of my brother found out what he did. They had believed his stories before, but not anymore. My cousin's social media changed. The happy pictures were deleted. The smiling posts disappeared. She posted less and less. One day, her account was gone. People who once ignored me now wanted to hear my side. I didn't give them details. I told them, it's all there. I didn't add anything. I didn't need to. My aunt lost her part-time job. Her manager saw what happened. No one wanted her around customers anymore. She had always acted proud in public, always pretending she was the one holding the family together. Now people saw her for who she really was. My brother's friends turned their backs on him. He had told everyone I was weak, lazy, and greedy. But the truth showed something else. He wasn't the victim. He had been caught. People stopped trusting him. He started staying quiet. The family that once stood so tall began to fall apart. Not because I shouted. Not because I fought them in the street. But because they showed who they were. And I simply let others see it. The truth is strong when it stands alone. I didn't enjoy their pain. I didn't smile at their loss. I just felt calm. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And this was part of it. They had tried to erase me. Tried to take what wasn't theirs. Now they were the ones being left behind. By friends. By work. By the people who once believed them. And I never raised my voice. The house was quiet again. For the first time in a long time, it felt still. No loud voices. No footsteps in the hall. Just peace. I stood in the living room and looked around. The walls were covered in cheap wallpaper, bright colors that didn't belong. It looked nothing like the home I remembered. The furniture was too shiny, too new, too fake. The things my mother loved were missing. I started with the wallpaper. I pulled it down one strip at a time. Behind it was the old paint, soft and warm. I cleaned the walls and let them breathe again. I threw away the fake decorations they had put up. I packed the things that didn't belong in boxes and left them by the door. Room by room, I cleaned. It wasn't fast. I didn't rush. Some days I only did a little. But slowly, the house began to change. It started to feel like her again. In the back of the closet, I found a small box. Inside were photos. Old ones. My mother smiling on the porch. Me and her in the garden, both of us covered in dirt and laughing. Notes she had written, grocery lists, birthday plans, reminders in her neat handwriting. I sat on the floor and read every note. Some made me laugh. Some made me cry. One said, "Buy more tea. He likes the lemon one." I had forgotten that, but she hadn't. I found her old teacups in a box marked trash. They had almost thrown them away. I cleaned each one and placed them back on the shelf. Little by little, I brought her memory back into the house. Outside, the garden was full of weeds. The flowers were gone. The soil was dry. My mother used to love her garden. She would hum while planting, always talking to the flowers like they were friends. I spent a full day pulling out weeds. The next day, I turned the soil. Then I went to the store and bought new flowers, the same kind she used to grow. Marigolds, daisies, roses. I planted them in the same spots. I didn't talk. I just worked. My hands in the dirt, the sun on my back. It felt right. Every morning after that, I walked through the garden. I watered the flowers. I touched the leaves. I watched them grow. They were small at first, but strong. Inside the house, I put her photo back on the wall, the one they had taken down. It belonged there. It always had. I didn't invite anyone. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. This wasn't for them. This was for her. And for me. Each day, the house felt lighter. Not because of what I added, but because of what I removed. The noise. The lies. The fake smiles. They were all gone. What was left was simple, quiet, and true. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. Lemon. Like she liked. The wind was soft. The flowers moved gently. The sky turned orange. I didn't feel alone. I felt full. This was still her home. Now it was mine too. And finally, it felt whole again. It had been months since everything happened. The house was quiet, the garden full again, and the rooms finally felt like home. I had found peace in small things, watering the flowers, drinking tea on the porch, reading one of my mother's old books. Then one afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. It was soft, slow. I opened it and saw my brother. He looked different. His clothes were worn, his face tired. He didn't speak right away. He just looked at me with eyes that no longer held pride. "Can I come in?" he asked. His voice was low. "Just for a while. I have nowhere else." I didn't move. I didn't say yes. I just stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I pointed to the porch. "Sit," I said. He walked over and sat down, right in the same spot where I had once stood, holding my box of clothes in the rain. I sat next to him. We were quiet for a minute. He cleared his throat. "Things got bad," he said. "I lost my job. I couldn't keep up with rent. Everyone turned on me. I listened. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. We thought we were doing what was best." I looked straight at him. "Do you remember what you said to me that day?" He didn't answer. He looked away. "You told me this wasn't my home anymore. You told me to leave. No warning. No kindness." He said nothing. "I had just buried Mom," I said. "And you threw me out like I was nothing." His head hung low. "I know," he whispered. "I was wrong." We sat in silence. The wind moved the flowers in the yard. The sun was starting to set. He looked up at me again. I just need a place to stay until I get back on my feet. Just a few nights. Please. I stood up. I looked at the door, then back at him. No, I said. His eyes widened. He didn't argue. He didn't beg again. He just nodded slowly. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked back inside and closed it gently. Through the window, I watched him sit there for a while. Then he stood and walked away. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel proud. I just felt done. He had made his choice months ago. And now I had made mine. The room felt still. A candle burned softly on the table beside me. My mother's photo sat next to it, her face calm and gentle, just like I remembered. The light from the candle flickered against the frame, casting soft shadows on the wall. I sat alone, not feeling lonely, just quiet inside. No voices, no noise, no rush. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about the past few months. I just sat there, letting the stillness wrap around me like a blanket. There was no need to speak, no one to explain anything to. Everything that needed to be said had already been shown. The truth had come out piece by piece, without yelling or fights. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't begged. I had simply waited and acted when the time was right. I didn't want revenge. I never did. I only wanted honesty, respect, and peace. I wanted to protect what my mother left behind, not just the things, but the feeling of home she had created. That soft, steady feeling of care, of safety, of being seen. Now it was just me and the memories. I looked at her photo and remembered the way she used to hum in the kitchen. The way she would touch my shoulder when she passed by. The way she listened, even when I didn't know what to say. All of that was still here, in small ways. In the way the chair faced the window. In the mug sitting neatly on the shelf. In the quiet strength I felt in my chest. The people who tried to take everything were gone now. They had spoken over me, pushed me out, acted like I didn't matter. But now they were silent. I didn't have to shout to be heard. I didn't have to prove anything. I just let the truth move on its own. It was never about winning. It was about holding on to what mattered. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, and breathed deeply. I felt no anger, no sadness. Just calm, just memory. No more questions, no more noise. Just this space, filled with love and quiet strength. Sometimes you don't need to answer people with words. Sometimes silence is everything. And this silence, full of truth, was more powerful than anything I could have said. True strength doesn't shout. It stands tall in silence. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that dignity and patience are powerful. Sometimes, saying nothing says everything. Like, comment your thoughts and follow for more real stories that inspire, heal, and remind us what strength really looks like.